I'm very excited to give you some sneak peek into our upcoming release of the CityEngine. We have the beta coming up soon, so we are still in development, but we already have exciting stuff to present. My name is Nick, and I'm a developer in the CityEngine team. So the first thing I want to talk about is something I'm myself very excited about, working every day with CityEngine, and it's got a fresh new look. We have a dark mode and a new set of icons. So let me show you in a short video. That's the CityEngine you know more or less, and now you can use the whole thing in your favorite dark mode. If you zoom into the top, you see the new icons. These are high quality SVG icons that will adapt to all your high DPI screens, and of course also in the light mode. They're nice. And for the CJ users, we also, of course, also have a dark mode for the CJ editor, where you have new syntax highlighting options. Actually, the dark mode gives the opportunity to have a little bit more color variations and show you the different elements. Yes. So next, it's a topic we already presented in last release, where we added vector tiles and new kinds of base maps to the get map data functionality. Get map data, of course, a very important functionality to get data context into CityEngine. And we continue this development by now supporting any kind of coordinate systems. So before it was only Web Mercator, now whatever you like. I also have a short video for that. So you go to the get map data thing, and here in the example we have a lot of Swiss maps. You can use all the maps that are available to your organization. You look for some place, like Parpan. Select your extent, have all your settings, and it will download it with the usual things: elevation data, imagery, OSM, buildings. And one small new feature too is if you want to load in another map, the previous setting will now be saved by default, so you don't have to choose the same extent again and have a little bit better user experience, hopefully. Talking about ArcGIS Urban, here the idea is that you can use your urban plans that you have created in ArcGIS Urban and import them to CityEngine, for example, to do some more high quality visualizations. Here we also have some new features. First thing is about context. So here we are in ArcGIS Urban, and you see here some urban plan, and the white buildings around is like the scene layer, the context layer. And these are by default built with the OSM, by default the OSM building layer. And now if you import such a plan to CityEngine, you have the option to import this awesome building. So we have this urban default now also here. And an anecdote is like the awesome buildings are actually built with a CityEngine rule that you find in the Esri lib. So that's actually a very natural integration. We also have a feature that this context layer is divided in two parts. The one part is in the study area, and the broader context that we now colored in red. We also support now demolish area when you switch scenarios. And what you see here now is the cleaned up inspector. So we reorganized all the attributes you find to make them more intuitive and also more consistent with how it's done in ArcGIS Urban. Here you can override zoning regulations and all this data. I don't know which ones, but you see. Also we added some new data, some read-only fields like below zoning designation, this kind of stuff. Furthermore, we now support the import of spaces. So on the left, you see ArcGIS Urban, where we have these colored spaces, and you can import them now directly into CityEngine, which basically works that each space is imported as a floor plate and automatically assigned a rule that extrudes it and colors it the right way, which you then can use as a starting point to, for example, add a more complex rule that builds a high-level facade. And from there on, you can use all the export functionality to bring it maybe to Unreal Engine for a really top-notch visualization. So these are the new features that in regard to the urban integration. Talking about 3D formats, we continuously, of course, try to improve our importers, exporters. And one feature I wanted to highlight is GLTF transparencies. So GLTF is a popular format that you can use to export whole CityEngine scenes and then use those scenes to, and then view those scenes in your favorite GLTF viewer, for example, Unreal Engine. And in the past, this was not always very successful. One of the reasons is that GLTF distinguishes blend and opaque materials, and this is handled differently depending on what application you're in. And we went ahead and improved our exporter so that GLTF files are viewed correctly, are displayed correctly in all viewers out there. So next topic. CityEngine is certainly not an easy application to get into. And I think it's soon a teenager. So we have a process to improve and refurbish our old tutorials. With this release, we will refurbish four old tutorials, so 4 new old tutorials, mostly relating CGA coding, CGA, our procedure model language. A small video about that, what you can expect in such a tutorial. Here we have tutorial 7, which shows how you can take a real-life photograph, and it guides you through steps how you can recreate that with some procedural rules. So you would start from a rectangle, and the tutorial shows you how to split this rectangle into the windows, ornaments, balconies, and of course, I'm faster than this. Of course, also textures. So you really learn the basics of CGA, and most likely will take you longer than this video if you do it the first time, but you will fast get to something beautiful. So that's a good intro to talk a little bit about CGA, our procedure modeling language. So what you saw before is we started with a rectangle and then transformed this into a detailed facade. Usually in procedure modeling, you start maybe from the building parcel or some building footprint, extrude this, and now you start to decompose that geometry to find out where you put the roof, where you put the facade. For example, in this particular example, you want to put a facade to the outside that looks to the street, and maybe a different facade that looks to the inside. The main functionality for that is the component split. That takes the geometry and you can decompose it into the different surfaces to assign the next rules. And what I just explained here, these are not so trivial tasks. So distinguishing these yellow faces from the blue ones, right now we offer some geometric selectors that you can say, I want the front face. But if you have like more complex configurations like here, I'm sure everybody who uses CGA knows this is not so easy as it looks. So we're working on new features that try to address this. And the first one I present today is we enhanced our geometry creation operation, like all those operations that build new geometry, like the extrude or the envelope or roofs, to semantically tag the output geometry. So you have more information about what geometry you actually have. And this is in form of tags that are stored directly on the geometry component. So let me show you. For example, here you would have started in the bottom you would have started with this 2D footprint and extruded it. You see the code on top. And now the extrude will add automatically certain semantic information on top of the geometry that you can access when you do your component split. And then in this case, it's very conveniently, it can distinguish those surfaces that spawn from a hole and those from outside. And then you can use them to assign a different rule. For example, in the inside you want columns, outside a nice facade. Same thing for roofs. Here you have other categories. You maybe want to distinguish the actual roof surfaces and the ones that spawn from the side. So now instead of relying on geometric properties, you need to think about, oh, what angle does it have? You can just use this semantic information and you don't care about. You don't need to have a degree in linear algebra. So, and together you very quickly have a very beautiful Roman house. This semantic information we also added to the setback. Here, instead of tagging surfaces, we tag the edges. So you know in blue the edges you actually made a setback, and in red the result. So you have this, and then of course in yellow the sides. So you have these different categories. And using that in a more practical environment, our system also allows to transport these tagged informations when you do new operations. So here the extrude will add these tags to the sides, and you can then use that to build your rules around. So you directly have context of the blue faces, the blue facades are those that look to the street, and the red ones are the ones you created when you did the setback. So you don't need to rely on geometric looking at normals to see what surfaces where. You just have proper semantic information you can use and generate more easily, like write designs more easily. Transform your designs into code more easily. Yeah. On top of that, we stay with the component split, and so far we just offered a set of static selectors where you could decide I want the front component or side components. Now we extended this feature that you can use logical selector expressions, so you can use your own functions, or you can combine the static selectors. Just some code examples here in highlighted. You can now, for example, combine the front and left. You can use built-in functions, like you can take the area of a face, you can query this. You can use your own defined function. You can use the new is-tagged selector introduced before, and so on. The same thing is, of course, available for the setback operation that uses similar functionality. Furthermore, we did some changes to the compilation, how the compilation works, and managed to considerably speed up compilation time. So that's especially relevant if you work on large CGI projects with a lot of imports. This should be now a lot faster and keep your application responsive. So that's the main part of the feature. There will be more, but that's what I'm presenting now. If you're interested in the beta, that's the link where you can sign up for it. It's not available yet, but I think it will be.
Yeah, the beta opens, I think, on the 15th of October.
Yeah, so you have some time to look at that link. Yeah. So that's it.
I'm currently in a position where we're working a lot with a custom database through OSM because of the sensitivity of some of the data that we work with. So we have some data that gets collected that is public knowledge, but it also is collected with OSM by UN mappers that collect for areas that are sensitive. And I'm wondering, in the GitMap data space, would it be possible to pull in a separate OSM database into that? I know that sounds odd, but it's a unique.
I need to look in the room if I get some notes.
Yeah, okay, well, that's,
What we can discuss afterwards.
yeah, we can talk after. Hi.
Or maybe I can say something quick. I mean, GMD or GetMap data is so the data source is based on the port you're Yeah, so the data source for GetMap data is based on the portal you're currently logged in. So probably via GetMap data, this doesn't work right now, but you can, of course, just import the OSM data via OSM import. You don't have the dialog with the nice window where you can draw the extent. But the idea to also support custom, I think that would be the only way to do it. Right.
Okay. For the tutorials, I was curious if there would possibly be any space for providing one that focuses on teaming with CityEngine, and also just getting folks in a way where they're just focused on how do we share these different files, how do we go back and forth in a project, because I am finding that I'm having to come up with my own best practices in order to make sure folks know to share the whole project files and how do we get to our material libraries, and so I'm curious if that's also a consideration.
That's a very good question. I mean, we want to teach you all these things. So, and I think it's very good feedback if you tell us what topics you struggle with, and we will of course be happy to consider then building tutorials for this, because it's not always easy to anticipate which parts of the application somebody is struggling with, so which parts there should be more teaching. So definitely this is something we can do.
Okay, well, awesome.
It's actually a funny timing. We were just in the last couple of weeks talking also with guys from vrbn to come up maybe with a blog post about best practices, how to share CityEngine project, especially if you have huge asset folders which maybe live on a server somewhere, or you want to version your projects. So yeah, look out for a blog post in the coming months.
That's great. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Work.
Thanks a lot. I do have a question regarding the kind of function-based selector definition. Will this work also in geometry functions like geometry.area?
Yes. So.
No, all good. All good.
Sorry.
Because I do have I'm going to do a short CGA tutorial workshop afterwards, and this addresses exactly one of the examples that I wanted to tackle, that is currently a little bit clumsy and needs a little bit acute workaround.
Okay, no, and definitely. So to get a little bit more technical, what's happening is so far what happened was we have these static selectors, and if a component matches, we create a new shape for that. So what happens now is if there is an expression, then we already create a shape, and this expression is evaluated on the shape. So you have the whole context only of that component. So if you do a component split of all faces, each face will individually be looked at. So if you use geometry area, it will only return the area of that particular face you're looking at. So you can use all the built-in functions as in the selector, and the geometry context will be only the component you're looking at.
It's incredibly powerful. Kudos. Finally.
It was not easy to find. I have one more small thing. Half a year ago, Chris already teased you about Visual CGA. So what we saw before was CGA, normal one, which is a textual programming language. And we're also developing a visual programming language where you, instead of working with very complicated code, you work on nodes. And we work a lot on that feature, and stay tuned. There's going to be soon something. That's all.